Greetings and welcome to another episode of Artists of the Night. Today I am joined with Jeremiah Walter, musician. We recorded a fantastic performance of his here at Knights of Columbus Hall, and we're going to go ahead and take a little time to discuss his performance, his background, and listen to some fantastic music. Jeremiah, how are you?
Doing great, Dustin. Thanks so much for having me and being part of this. This is really cool.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for being part of it too. Wonderful to have you here. So Jeremiah, I would like to ask you some questions about how you got involved in music. When did this all start for you?
Yeah, so I played trombone in school. Was sort of my first formal music experience, I guess. And that was from like 5th grade to 11th grade. And even though I'm now sort of a folk musician, I don't really read music. I still feel like that. In particular, it helped because of trombone, you've got the slide and you got to there's a general position where you're supposed to be, but you kind of have to listen, if you're in the right place. So I think it helped me as a singer to sort of listen, and then lung capacity perhaps helped with that. And then just learn kind of general song structure. But as far as then singing, when I was about 21, so first of all, I kind of learned to sing doing karaoke. I knew I wanted to sing, but I just didn't have the talent. In fact, my brother, I remember making fun of me. We were in church and, there'd be a song going and I'd be like, just kind of like mumble singing. And he'd always make fun of me because I was self-conscious about my singing voice, but it just seemed like something I wanted to do. Anyway, so through karaoke, and I'm sure some adult beverages helped with my courage to do that, and built up those sort of singing muscles. And then a high school buddy of mine started a heavy metal band. So I was actually more of a screamer than a singer in a band called Intake. And so kind of the highlight of that was we opened for Suicidal Tendencies.
Awesome.
At Colorado Music Hall, which is now Stargazers, and packed house. And that was awesome. For all those years I was singing. I'd kind of mess on guitar and I'd play bass on a couple songs, but I always had to depend on other people sort of writing the music, and then I would go and put lyrics over the top of that. And then about 9 or 10 years ago, a coworker of mine had a baritone ukulele that he had bought, a Rogue baritone ukulele. He bought it for like $30 online. He's like, I think you should just borrow this and see what you think. And I just took to it. It helps that it was only 4 strings compared to, a guitar having 6 strings. But I realized, I can just bang out some chords on this and write some songs. So I started writing songs on that. And around that time, a coworker of mine, Travis Duncan, had a concertina that had been hanging out in his closet for years and years and years. And he heard the songs I was recording. It's like, concertina might be cool with that. So he started playing concertina along with it. And then Curtis Krall, who was the guy who lent me that ukulele, played cello. And so we ended up getting together and performing as the Rogue Spirits. And then, so in the Rogue Spirits, Travis and I will still, get together on projects and whatnot. We do a lot of stuff with theater companies. We did something with Marah Saad. We were approached by some coworkers who were like, hey, we're doing this theater production. We think your music would fit good with that. And then we just kind of took to it like ducks to water. So the next thing you know, we're doing stuff with Theater Works and all sorts of other theater companies in town. We did music for The Elephant Man at Springs Ensemble Theater. And that actually got nominated for Best Sound Design for the Henry Awards, which is like a statewide awards.
Karaoke, learning how to sing through repetition of karaoke is a very unique way to kind of develop your singing. How long did it take? How much karaoke did you do before you felt like you were because you're a fantastic singer. That's why.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't have a calendar where I was tracking the days or anything, but it was over the course of years. I still feel like I'm still getting better. I started part because his range was sort of limited and his timbre and whatnot matched mine a lot, but doing the Doors and singing like Jim Morrison, that was the thing that I realized I could do the best in karaoke. So I would, and just kind of in that low baritone range, and then just slowly expanded from there. Yeah, I don't know, but it was a lot. I mean, it was almost, I also loved playing pool. So I was going out almost every night playing pool and karaoke in the late 90s. It was honestly, it was a huge deal. And I was a karaoke host for a little while. I was a KJ. And you'd have rotations of singers where it was like 35, 40 people, and you'd wait like 2 hours or 3 hours just to sing a second time. But it was over the course of years. And I was in some ways, what I lacked in skill, I made up for enthusiasm. I was always very loud. I belted very loudly.
Jeremiah, let's go ahead and take this opportunity and listen to our first song of the day, which is titled "Don't Fight Nature."
Don't Fight Nature, I wrote during the first thunderstorm after the Waldo Canyon fire, which, for those watching that may not know, was, at the time, it was the most devastating fire as far as, I think, damage of homes and all of that stuff, I think, in Colorado history, and then that was eclipsed the next year by the Black Forest fire. But so we had experienced this huge forest fire. It was pretty traumatic, for the whole community. Finally got that put out, and then there's a thunderstorm, and all of a sudden there's all these flash flood alerts popping up, and
which caused a lot of damage itself too.
Lots of damage, especially up the pass a bit. Manitou, and I think Cascade, and those towns up Highway 24 really got hit hard. And so it just got me thinking, nature's pretty dang powerful. There's these wildfires that can just decimate people's homes, and we just saw the power of that. And it's like, oh, and it can rain and wipe out a bunch of other, homes and do other damage, and mudslides and all of that. So I literally wrote the song during a thunderstorm, just about the power of nature, and just don't fight it, don't mess with it. It's one of those, if I had written it today, I may have, I don't know how many years ago that is now, 6 years or something. Mm-hmm. I may have been a little more straightforward about things like climate change and other things that we're doing to nature, the other ways we're fighting nature that is not necessarily in our best interest, because it's coming back to bite us pretty good. Right now, stepped outside a little bit ago, and it's just super smoky outside, from forest fires, and that's a direct result of climate change. And so, but even then, that was sort of a little bit of my point, just don't, nature's a pretty powerful force, and we think as humans that we're masters of this domain or whatever, but compared to some of these other forces of nature, whether it be fire or storms, things like that, of course there's earthquakes and all that sorts of stuff, we're not that powerful. This planet is a lot more powerful.
Maybe to add to that too, on top of the more serious and severe ramifications of fighting nature is also beautiful, and we live in a paradise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that makes it, well worth preserving, not only for the fact that it sustains us and keeps us alive, but it's beautiful, and it's a precious opportunity to experience it.
Yeah, I just saw an interview with David Attenborough is on Instagram now. He thinks that will hopefully help, raise awareness about climate change. And he did an interview, I think it was on 60 Minutes, and he was talking about how he had gone and looked at the Great Barrier Reef and just how luscious it was. Of course, they had video footage to show, and just like this paradise. It's just gorgeous, regardless of, okay, these are all these living organisms, and that's great. Just absolutely gorgeous. So, and now it's like, I don't know, whatever the ocean equivalent of a graveyard is. It looks just so dead. Just for our own selfishness, right? You'd think we'd want to preserve those, because you're right. We live in this gorgeous state, and why you wouldn't want, to maintain that. And there are people, I know it's not, I think collectively we know this and we want it. And another discussion would be the powers that be that want to prevent meaningful change because they would, lose out on some profits. So, but I don't think we're going to solve the problem of human greed today, Dustin.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And try to cover the fight behind or between, short-term gain versus long-term damage.
Yes. The collective marshmallow test.
All right. Awesome. So let's go ahead. Let's move into, this almost seems too perfect, but let's go ahead and move into Burning World.
Time's growing restless, they seek a different speed. Hatred's on the warpath, compassion's all we need to cure a burning world. Differences are normal, just like you and me. Separate but equal, the hate has gotta see the power in their words. On TV they all shouting about the other side, instead of really listening to the surging tide that's drowning all the world. We all can't be like you, we wouldn't want to have your clothes in mind.
In this instance, Burning World, although there's a little bit of a nod to global warming, it is more about sort of the divisiveness of, in particular, this country, but the world, and driven by cable news and things like that. And it's just people shouting about the other side. And this is another one of those. I wrote it a few years ago, and it feels more relevant now. We're more divided than ever. And there's actual issues like our world is burning and all these other issues that we need to come together to address. And, it's not happening. We're just, we're a bitterly divided nation. And to an extent, you're seeing this type of thing elsewhere in the world as well. Mm-hmm. And I do think, cable news and some networks and channels more than others are really fueling that fire and expanding that divide.
You kind of hit on this in the song and the lyrics, but what can we do? How do we
Yes.
How do we move past this? How do we get out of this rut?
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, okay, everything sucks. All right, see ya. And then not offer no solution. Yeah, I just think it takes compassion and having an open mind. That's the only way. If we're vilifying each other and the other side, I was certainly writing it from my own point of view, and political viewpoint. But and I've got my own biases, so this is in a way telling myself that I need to have a more open mind to people that have different beliefs than I do, and not just because they support a certain politician or have a certain view that they're either not a good person or they don't know what they're talking about or they're stupid, or sure, I can disagree with them, but they're a human being. They're most likely a good person. They just have a different viewpoint. And we're not going to be able to bridge those divides unless we can have real conversations, and that will take having compassion and being open-minded about what the other side has to say. And really, it's sad that it's become sides. And I know there's people that are centrists or whatever, but more and more it's just us and them, just blue or red or whatever, and also then there's tribalism that is more and more involved, it seems, which can make you less likely to be open to those other viewpoints, because there's this villainization, almost a dehumanization of the people, and both sides do this, so that's my hope, is that people will start showing a little more compassion and open-mindedness.
So now we're going to go ahead and move on to Indian paintbrush.
This is lyrically a bit more abstract, but in general, it's just really just about freedom. But then more specifically, Indian paintbrush, just talking about inspiration, but that is my favorite Colorado wildflower is Indian paintbrush. And the first line, of course, like killer color, which is there's generally bright reds, but other colors, and the nectar's sweet. And what a great childhood memory of mine is you can pull out the little stem or whatever, the nectar, and sip it out. But I love doing that as a kid. Growing up out in Peyton, we had them in the field there, but I'd always try to be careful because I knew that that was also nectar for the bees and whatnot. So I tried to not suck it all down because I wanted to save some for the bees, but I don't, and so for some reason that flower it kind of just seems like freedom to me, and that lies in maybe within that nectar or within that flower. And then there's hearing that it was used to make paint, right? And there's an artistic aspect to that. I find that often my first draft, I'll tweak a word or two here or there, but usually once I feel like it's done, and usually it's that day, very rarely do I write songs in multiple sessions. Once it's done, it feels just kind of done. I just do it until, okay, that feels good.
Mhm.
I've added like a verse before. I had one song that was too short and I added a verse later, but for the most part, once I've landed on wording, I don't really over edit. And again, maybe the end product is suffering as a result. I could, I could maybe make them a lot better, but there's something kind of cool about capture. Maybe it's just sort of a romantic notion though too. It's like sort of capturing this feeling in this moment and how you're feeling at that time, and that's what came out. So it's, the songs are kind of this snapshot in time, and so to change that later on because of how you're feeling, sort of maybe compromises that. It's like going in and photoshopping a wart out of your photo or something.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to COVID Blues.
COVID-19 blues got us holed up in our homes. COVID-19 blues got us holed up in our homes. We're quarantined, but we're not alone. These COVID blues are messing with our mood. These COVID blues are messing with our mood. And all the stores are running out of food. COVID blues. COVID blues. Uncertainty has swallowed up our lives. Uncertainty has swallowed up our lives. Unity and fear vie for our minds. COVID blues.
Okay, COVID Blues, definitely still relevant at this point in time.
Right.
Definitely you can kind of listen. It is interesting, and we did, full disclosure, you and I did discuss this a little bit off camera, but there are definitely some references you made in the song that at this point are dated, and only a few months dated, but it is a noticeably different situation that we're in at this point in time.
Right. Yeah. And in particular, and I've wondered about changing it before recording it. That was my first sort of public performance of it, if you exclude like putting something on Facebook. But it was back March 22nd. I recorded that, which was it was maybe a week or so into the lockdown or stay-at-home order, and one of the lines is, all the stores are running out of food. And it was either that day or just the day before, go to the grocery store and it's just nothing, like just whatever, those weird little parts of the asparagus nobody wants to eat or whatever. Like, It was hard. Of course, no toilet paper, but just food was, gone. And of course, the supply chain caught up, and now it's, you go to the store and everybody's wearing masks, but it's the food supply just seems the exact same as it always had. But I thought against changing it. This kind of goes to what we were talking about with not editing my songs, is I felt like it's the snapshot of time, and that's how I was feeling, and that was a huge thing for, I don't remember how long, several weeks anyway, where there's these food shortages and people are worried and stocking up on all these canned goods and whatever else. So I feel like it's a nice reflection of that. I could riff more on how I hope that what this pandemic has shown the flaws in our society, not just the food chain, but in our healthcare system, and how people are one paycheck away from being evicted, and all these other, how tenuous our society has become. I think that this pandemic has brought a lot of that to the fore. So hopefully that leads to some things actually getting done about it, because you can be very much a house of cards when everything's going right. Then it's, you don't realize maybe how tenuous it all actually was.
Now we're going to go ahead and take this opportunity to listen to Good Old Haze.
Millions gone astray, slumber in the stumble time, when no one now and then is gray. Relatives have gone, are going to the cemetery, passing the shine away. And if you miss a good old haze, then your time is borrowed. Aspen leaves and nothing stays. Throats to cry, the mystery, unleashing secrets swallowed. After all it is today. Some ignore the sum added up before their lies, and some ignore the power at play. Clinging to a gun, trembling with a waiting whisper, someone's gonna leave today. And if you miss a good old haze, then your time is borrowed. Aspen leaves and nothing stays. Throats to cry, the mystery, unleashing secrets swallowed. After all it is today.
There's a lot of people that speak fondly of the good old days, right? And how much better things were in a previous time. And I think that's often a bit of a either delusion, or maybe it was better for some people, but certainly not other people that maybe didn't have certain rights or whatever. And for all the bad that's in the world, we've also made a lot of good progress on a lot of issues. So this is sort of kind of calling out people that are still living in the past and can't accept that times have changed, and this is where we're at. And I didn't necessarily identify a certain issue, because some people, I don't know, some progress that has been made in society, people may be fine with, but maybe not other types of progress. Some people might not see it as progress and see it as a regression, So yeah, this is basically saying, hey, like, quit living in the past. It's, this is where we are, and everything changes all the time. We're always continually evolving, and again, not always for the good. And one thing I didn't necessarily put in there, but it's true, if you think there is change and it's bad, then you should stand up and try to do something about that. But this is more for people that are just sort of nostalgia for nostalgia's sake.
Oh, Saponero is underwater, just down from Old Soap Creek, and the line heading westward has gone forever deep. The Black Canyon is such a chasm, it backs the dam that done the deed. So hold water, oh Saponero, your land impedes our need.
Saponero was an old railroad town at the bottom of a canyon that is now filled up with what we know of as Blue Mesa Reservoir. And it's still a town. It's just a few buildings that are there. I think at one of the campgrounds there is named Saponero, and Blue Mesa is near Gunnison. It's the largest body of water in Colorado. I don't know, 23 or 26 miles long or something, super deep. And some of the buildings that are above water had been moved up, so they were actually part of the original town. And some of the structures, I guess they moved up, at least to save lumber and all that kind of stuff too. So it kind of fascinated me that fishing there, we go fishing there probably at least once a year. And it was fascinating to me that there was this town under the water, and there's still, I guess when water levels were very low, my parents could see the foundation of some old homes and things. So I thought, well, that's kind of neat. And I ended up writing a song about it. And it fascinated me that this town of Saponero served its purpose as a railroad town for however many years. It was just a stop along the railway. And all of a sudden, well, we need a hydroelectric dam. We need more electricity. So you've served your purpose. Now we're going to fill this canyon that you're in with water so we can all have electricity. And then it sort of became also this rumination upon westward expansion and manifest destiny and human progress, and because of course being a railroad town and this heading west, go west, young man, all that.
Well, Jeremiah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate your willingness to come down and share your music with us, and to also share your music with everybody watching this program. Again, it's been wonderful, and I hope all of you out there enjoy this. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dustin. It's a pleasure.